Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Growth Paths. This time today, I am really happy to welcome somebody that I'm going to be talking to all about analytics and all things AI related. We have Katie Robbert, and I said her name correct, and she gave me the way to say her name correctly just before we began. And I'm super glad that she did. Before we get into it, Katie, I'm just going to do the rundown of your profile the same I do for all of our guests. So, Katie's got a lot of experience in customer service. Looking at your profile on LinkedIn, I've been doing a little bit of digging over the past day. I'm also seeing that you've been a project manager, project assistant, product line manager, director of marketing technology at Shift Communications, corporate community manager, women in analytics, which we're going to get into in a little bit. And since March 2018, you're the co-founder and CEO of Trust Insights. On top of that, Katie is an authority on compliance, governance, change management, agile methodologies, and dealing with high stakes, no mistakes data. As the CEO of Trust Insights, she oversees the growth of the company, manages operations, product commercialization, and sets the overall strategy. Her expertise includes strategic planning, marketing operations management, organizational behavior, and marketing research and analysis. On top of all of those different things, she's also built and grown multi-million-dollar lines of business in the marketing technology, pharmaceutical, and healthcare industries, and led teams of Microsoft partner software engineers to build industry-leading research software to address and mitigate pharmaceutical abuse. On top of that, Katie holds a master's degree in marketing and technological innovation and is a published researcher in, let me see if I can pronounce this one, pharmacoepidemiology and drug safety journal.
I was wondering if you were going to attempt that one.
Yeah,
I was waiting for it.
I think I got there, sort of. It was a rocky road.
Most people skip over that one because it's pharmacoepidemiology.
Pharmacoepidemiology.
It doesn't really roll off the tongue.
It's not quite it's a bit more of a tongue twister than some of the other things that are down here, that's for sure. I'm going to go with an easier one. Also a published author in applied marketing analytics, owner and community admin of analytics for marketers, and as community operations manager ambassador for women in analytics, as I mentioned previously. And now I can breathe a little bit. Katie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. So, hey, look, tell us a little bit about what you guys do at Trust Insights.
We started Trust Insights when we realized we weren't meeting the needs of our clients when we worked at the agency. And by that, what I mean is everybody wants to be data-driven. Everybody wants to use the data to make decisions. You know, data-driven is one of those buzzwords that everyone loves. However, nobody was really taking the time to make sure that they were using the right data, that they had good data quality, good data hygiene, that all of their systems were talking together, that there were processes around the data collection, the data maintenance, the data governance. And so that was one of the reasons why we started Trust Insights, so that we could really focus on doing that work to allow our clients to be truly data-driven. And so one of the core services that we offer is, a MarTech infrastructure audit, meaning if you're using 4 different systems and trying to make a single decision, then we're going to help you make sure that you're collecting the right data and that the systems talk to each other. For a long time, their focus on that was Google Analytics, but when Google Analytics 4 was released, everybody jumped ship because it's a terrible system. And so now we've been trying to help people figure out different ways to get the same kind of information that they can make decisions on. And now we've layered in tools like generative AI to help them. So we recently just did a workshop at one of the events that we were at to show people how to create a digital customer journey using their data and generative AI. So that's the kind of work that we do. We really want to empower marketers and decision makers to feel confident in the decisions they're making with their data. And so we do the unsexy work of making sure that your data is where it needs to be.
Got it. It's like you mentioned something that GA4. Good Lord, what a piece of shit. I'm sorry, excuse my French, but it's fucking awful. It's you compare for a product that was spot on before, like Google Analytics. When I say GA, I mean Google Analytics. Google Analytics was like I didn't see any issue with it. Like it worked, right? Like I knew what I was doing. The dashboard itself was very easy to be able to manipulate, be able to see the right reporting, be able to see the traffic reporting that I was looking for, etc. it was like a lot more customizable and a lot more easy to use. And then GA4 came along and was like, what in the name of,
Yeah.
like, what is this? I mean, what were they thinking?
Well, it's definitely a masterclass in not listening to your customers and just making decisions that you think are going to be better for them. But really, the reason behind it, my understanding is they wanted to integrate more of their own products and really push people to use Google Ads. And so now, I don't know if you've noticed, but where you used to be able to do basic attribution modeling in Universal Analytics, when they rolled out Google Analytics 4, you could still do some basic attribution modeling, but now, and I don't know exactly when the change happened, you are now required to hook up your Google Ads account in order to access the attribution modeling. So it's really for them, unfortunately, it's a money grab. So they're like, well, we need more people using the ads. I know. Let's make sure everything that we offer is tied to that so that if they want to continue to use these things, they're giving us more money. Because Google Analytics, unless you were using the 360 Enterprise version, was free for everybody, and we loved it. Nobody had problems with it. Nobody asked for this upgrade.
Yeah, I fully agree. And the issue is across all of these different platforms that everything's moving to a money grab. Another example I'll have, it's less so on the analytics side, but LinkedIn on the ad platform side. So if you look at LinkedIn and what LinkedIn advertising used to cost in comparison to what it costs now is like they upped their prices on. So basically what they wanted to do is they wanted to move the platform to be more focused on growing brand, because there's more money in growing brand, and you then don't need to necessarily be able to attribute everything back, because it's impossible to attribute normally easily stuff back to brand, right? So they're like, okay, let's go after brand. Let's make sure that all lead gen ads, we're going to triple the price in our lead gen ads. So you've seen like cost per lead go up by triple, quadruple. I've seen it in some companies tenfold. So it makes zero sense to do any lead generation activities on LinkedIn any further. Then they introduce other things like content creator ads, where you can then, people can put more money behind their posts to get more views and so on. And what they're doing at the same time is the impression share that you get by just pushing an organic post has gone like right down. If you want to get more views in your post, you need to put money behind. And it's like, stop being so bloody money hungry. And with that, what you're seeing now is you're seeing content on LinkedIn not as good as probably it was before. Everybody's like trying to fight for this like low impression share, and then people that are just creating content day in day out are spending a huge amount of money to get their content in front of more people. It's like the whole point of the whole point of the system that was set up in the first place is just gone, I think, and because of money.
It is. Well, and on top of that, they are notoriously stingy with the data that you can get out of it. So your analytics are really hard to get from them, as well as now they really favor personal accounts versus brand accounts. So brand accounts are really, suffering and struggling. So moving into 2025, as people are thinking about how do we get more of that brand awareness? How do we figure out our brand reputation? Social media is one of the worst places to do it unless you're a B2C company, like one of the major consumer brands. And their tactic is to be completely unhinged on social media, like a McDonald's or Wendy's or something like that. So people are like, well, maybe if we do that, we'll get more awareness. Well, sure, you'll get awareness, but for all the wrong reasons, because that works for them. It's not going to work for you. So LinkedIn has made it insanely hard for brands to build their reputation moving into the new year. Like all of these platforms, it's just hard to have a solid digital footprint.
They want you to double down on individuals within the organization to push them and put money behind them, because there's more of them than just one organization.
Exactly.
So again, money hungry. Microsoft, you've ruined it all, Microsoft. Why? No, but it's like it's I don't know. It's interesting to see which way it's going to go with these platforms, because you see LinkedIn moving away now as well. They've also reintroduced Shorts. They introduced the Shorts, or they introduced something similar to Shorts. So they tried to do like an Instagram story type of thing back, like I think maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, which failed because it was shit. And it's not the right platform for it. People weren't interested in it, right? It just didn't work. And the Shorts thing, I see going down that route as well. Like, who wants to sit there and scroll through LinkedIn Shorts? I
Well, and
mean,
YouTube did the same. YouTube has the YouTube Shorts.
yeah.
And it's like this weird out of context snippet of a longer video that is supposed to drive you to watch the longer video. But depending on the type of system, that, especially if you're using an AI system to just cut up a video into these shorts, it cuts off mid sentence. There's no context. And you're like, well, that was a waste of my time. Now I'm not going to watch the longer one. There was
Mm.
nothing in it for me. And, if as we're talking about, platforms like LinkedIn that are trying to capture the individuals versus the brands, it's definitely, instead of being that, one safe professional network of people, I'm seeing it turn into more of like, well, now it's a Facebook. I'm seeing the get ready with me videos and all of that junk that I'm like,
Yeah.
I just want to escape all of this. I just want to know like the latest news on generative AI or whatever it is. I don't want to see someone's get ready with me to go to an event. And yeah, I am throwing
Mm.
shade,
Yeah.
but it's just, I don't go to LinkedIn for that stuff.
I don't think a lot of people do either, but it is moving in that direction. Unfortunately, it's one of those things we can't stop. It's
Yeah.
like, but I just wonder where it's going to end. I think about that generally. We'll finish on this whole like rant about social media now in a second, but like myself and my wife talk about it quite often about like which way are we going with all these social media things in general, and just technology in general, right? I think
Hmm.
like it rules so much of our lives that we think back on like our childhood when we were kids and whatnot. Like things were so much
Right.
easier without the amount of tech that we have in front of us. And actually, every generation probably says, but it was better. I don't know if it was better, but there were certainly things that were less prevalent or less pushing. So I think the social media piece around mental health, etc., that's really
Oh, sure.
that's a massive issue that we didn't have to face or grow up with, right?
Right.
Um, but it's the same with like which way are things developing now with the likes of LinkedIn, etc. Would you not just? I know you can't stop, but there was so much value in the platform with how it was originally built and how it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago that now it's moving in a
Hmm.
direction that I don't know. Is it actually going to get to a point where it dies like Facebook sort of has? I know people say Facebook hasn't died, but based on the audience that I have out of all my family and friends and the let's say a couple of hundred to 1,000 people that will be in my sphere of people that I know
Hmm.
or whatever, I don't know anybody that still uses Facebook. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I think part of the challenge, and we definitely don't need to get down, the rabbit hole of why these things are going by the wayside, but the way in which the, communities themselves are being managed and what's being allowed and disallowed has definitely just sort of, broken the trust of a lot of people, especially brands who are trying to build their reputations on these platforms. That, they're like, well, do I want to be associated with this particular community platform if it doesn't really have a favorable, reputation? I don't want my brand associated. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult for brands to figure out where they should be to find their audience. And I think a lot of them are then turning to private communities, Discord communities, Slack communities,
yeah.
building their own communities outside of these public forums.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very interesting. Okay. Look, we did not come here to talk about social media, but it's been a very interesting conversation nevertheless. I want to ask you something because you did mention about like what you guys do and making sure that you've got data compliance, governments, making sure that that's all in order, etc. I've worked at the nature of my business has seen me work at many different companies over the past number of years, but I've also been like a full-time CMO and some other businesses, etc. And what I'm seeing a lot is that over the years, people are like, oh, we need to be super data centric. We need to be like data driven. Everything needs to be based off data. All of our decision making needs to be based off data. I personally don't agree with that because data can paint you a couple of different stories. Yeah, you should be guided by data, but you shouldn't necessarily make all of your marketing decisions based off data. What's your view on that? Being somebody that is so data focused, right? And also, I see you talking about being creative and so on as well in some of your
Mhm.
posts on LinkedIn, like when you're talking about AI and that. What's your guidance or what's your thoughts on that? Like, because creativity is stolen somewhat by only going data driven, I feel.
It really depends on the context. So, for example, when I was working on pharmaceutical clinical trials, you want to look at the data and make decisions based on that data. So, that
For
is
sure.
where you want to be 100% data driven. In marketing, you're absolutely right. You want to use it as more of a guideline versus, the way that you would collect the data in a, clinical trial, especially since the way in which data is collected is a lot more, to use a technical term, loosey goosey in
Hmm.
marketing versus, the strict, rigid guidelines. Again, sort of depending on the industry that you're in, there's a lot of regulations, but in general, marketing data is not collected with the same rigor. So you would want to make sure that it's a guideline, not a, this is the only decision we can make. So if our customers, for example, if we're looking at market research data and our customers generally like what we're doing, great, then you can say, okay, we can keep doing what we're doing and we can do something new. You wouldn't look at that and go, okay, they only generally like what we're doing, we're going to drop everything and totally overhaul it because we need to get to 100% satisfaction. Like, that's really not the way you want to be using the data.
Hmm.
If you see your traffic going, up and to the right month over month, that's great, but that doesn't tell you the whole story. So making a decision off of one data point isn't really the way you want to be approaching it. You want to be using it to guide the conversation and make sure you're getting into really the deeper issues and the insights and making, thoughtful actions that are going to have an impact. You want to be able to measure the work that you're doing. But again, it's really a guideline. People who live and die by what the data says, I think, to your point, really do stunt that creativity, where you need to have that room for imagination and dreaming and, the what if possibilities. And the data just won't allow that to happen.
Yeah, and it's also you hit something, you hit the nail on the head there with saying that the data collection is rather loosey goosey or goosey loosey. In Ireland, we say shite. So
Same thing.
yes, but for our Irish listeners, there I've just translated. Um, but I fully agree with that, and I've come across like companies before that stop doing something that they don't necessarily know if it's working or not, but I can tell by my gut and seeing it across many different brands that it's driving something. And I've worked with so many brands now that work that don't have multi-touch attribution modeling in place,
Mhm.
right? They don't work with multi-touch attribution, but they sell multi-million dollar contracts, right? And they make decisions on specific channels or specific campaigns based on whether or not that has driven a specific lead that's then turned into a deal, right?
Mhm.
And net, like if we're talking about something like that, a multi-million dollar contract is likely to have hundreds of touch points before there's any type of decision made. So you can't tell me that, like, okay, our LinkedIn ads need to be turned off because they haven't driven, like I can't directly attribute it back. That's also been a touch point in the journey, but like, no, I'm not, based on my attribution model, which is a single touch attribution model. But they don't want
Yeah.
to invest in the technology that then gives them multi-touch because they don't believe the multi-touch then. It's like, I don't know. What are you seeing there?
People who are calling themselves data driven also need to have the self awareness to hear the bad news as well as the good news. And that's really one of the challenges that we see with people who come to us and say they want help with their data. They really only want the good news. They don't want the bad news. And they want us to reframe the bad news as something good so that when they report up, it's really not that bad. And you and I only just met, but I can tell you right here and now, I am not that person. Don't come to me and ask me to sugarcoat things because that is not a good use of my time or your time.
Hmm.
If I have bad news to tell you, I'm going to tell you the bad news, but I'm also going to tell you how you can fix it and turn it around. And so I think that you're absolutely right. The multi-attribution that's a whole, basket of snakes or whatever people want to call it. It's a mess. It's chaotic because, especially as the company gets bigger, there's so many potential different touch points that if you don't have really strict and stringent data governance, you're never going to collect all of that data. So then relying on the data to make those decisions of what to do more, what to do of less, you're really still just guessing.
Fully agree. Fully agree. Thank you for that. Okay, last thing before we finish up, because we only have a couple of minutes. Tell me a little bit about Women in Analytics and what you guys do there.
So, Women in Analytics is an organization that was created, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. And the CEO, she created the organization because as she was working through her data science degree, she was struggling to find opportunities and spaces where women could really have a voice in the data science field and in the analytics field. And so she created Women in Analytics as a small get together. And over the years, it's grown into a large event. It's called the Data Connect Conference. The differentiator is that women and people identifying as women and non-binary are the speakers. It's not that men aren't allowed at the conference. They absolutely are. It's encouraged. Many of the board members are men, but it's giving a space for women to be on the stage in the forefront because there are so many women in the data science and analytics field that just aren't being given the same space and the same voice and the same opportunities that this event really wants to make sure that they're doing that. There's also a community. I've been a part of the community almost since the inception, and really making sure that we're sharing information in a way that sort of cuts through a lot of the noise. It's not really a place for thought leaders, but it's really just here's the news, here's the information, here are the opportunities. And now I've transitioned out of working with the community, and now I'm working more on the operations side with running their analytics team and also helping to set up a lot of their infrastructure on the back end.
Amazing. So that's really great, by the way. Well done on that. That's and also congratulations on going over to the operations side as well. I say that's on top of the day job as well. So a little hobby. But no, it sounds really interesting. Where can people find more information about Women in Analytics if they're interested in learning more?
You can find Women in Analytics on, of all places, LinkedIn, ironically. But you can also go to womeninanalytics.com. They have a website that will allow you to sign up for their newsletters, join their community. You can join the community for free. There's also paid versions, which gives you more features. So I would definitely check them out if you're interested in learning more about them.
Perfect. I'll make sure that that's put in the bio for this and in the description. Thank you so much. Katie, we're just right on time now, so we didn't get to cover everything we want to talk about, so you're going to have to come back again if that's okay.
I would love to.
Perfect. It's been really great speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we'll make sure that we share everything, all the links, etc., and also to Trust Insights and also to your LinkedIn so people can follow you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Next time I come on, I want to know that you've practiced saying pharmacoepidemiology.
Pharmacoepidemiology. Look at that. I already nailed it.
There you go.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Thanks, Katie. All the best. And have a great Thanksgiving, by the way.
You as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Guys, this has been another episode of Growth Path. Thanks again, Katie, and speak soon.